Hi there, everyone. Thank you so much for your patience today while I was getting everything set up. Just a heads up, there might be a little bit of noise in the hallway because I'm working out of a classroom today so that I can show you a few cool things that are installed on this particular computer. You might hear a little bit of noise in the background from students walking up and down the halls because it's currently our lunchtime. So I'm so sorry about that, just letting you know. Thank you for your patience. Good afternoon. Today we'll be exploring differentiated feedback, assessment, and evaluation as it relates to the support of the student with an LD or ADHD. So my name is Wendy Farkas. I'm one of 3 resource services staff at Trillium Demonstration School. I'm an Ontario certified teacher and am seconded to the Provincial Schools branch from the Waterloo Region District School Board. My role is to help educators and school boards across Ontario who are seeking support for their students with severe learning disabilities and ADHD. I'm a huge fan of project-based learning, hands-on learning, and educational technology in the classroom. I've worked with exceptional and struggling students throughout the entire duration of my career, as I've taught technological education for many years and later moved into a more focused special education role. I'm joined today by my colleague, Shannon Scullion, who is also in resource services, and she'll be helping me navigate the communication and the chat room today. Please say hi, Shannon.
Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome.
I am just going to, I'm going to turn off my video feed for the remainder of the presentation so that I can navigate all of the tech in the background, but I'll turn it back on later when we get to the question answer period. So I wanted to just quickly go over some of our Zoom features. You can see us, but we can't see you. So please do use the Q&A room below for any questions that you may have. Shannon will be monitoring the Q&A and chat room, and will pause later on to answer any questions that you have. Many of the materials and resources that we're sharing today have been acquired through research, professional development, professional readings, and social media. We hope that these resources will be shared amongst your colleagues and provide some support as we continue to develop relevant and engaging lessons for all of our learners. We also want to highlight some ways in which you can engage struggling or distracted learners, whether in the brick and mortar or online classroom. This slide deck, a recording of this webinar, and all resources will be emailed to you later this week. Please do feel free to share freely amongst your colleagues. This is an interactive slide deck designed to offer choice to an intended audience. Clicking on each thumbnail will bring us directly to supporting materials for that topic. The big ideas for today will include developing a shared understanding of assessment as outlined in Growing Success and many other ministry documents, develop an understanding of authentic, varied, and meaningful assessments and share methods for effective implementation. And also we'll explore some websites and apps that support differentiated assessment for the LD learner. This slide deck and templates like it can be found on such sites as Slides Mania and Slides Carnival. So I've hyperlinked those 2 resources for you there. Interactive presentations are more engaging and provide stimulation for the distracted learner. You can also check in on students by making them part of your presentation. Students can be called upon to choose topics and navigate through the day's learning. So let's say I were to call on a student right now and say, "Student, could you please choose the first slide?" So my student chooses differentiating. Differentiated instruction and universal design for learning are identified in the Learning for All document as 3 effective instructional strategies. We've shown you this image before. In the first frame, we have equality. Everyone gets the same thing. In the second frame, the support has been differentiated. Each person gets what they need. But in the third frame, we take it a step further and remove the barrier from the start. This represents universal design for learning. These two approaches are important for effective teaching and learning, and they support the creation of inclusive classroom environments. This is an ongoing cycle, which will vary from student to student and topic by topic. Teachers should be flexible and adjust their instruction and assessment practices based on student need and circumstances. This presentation is actually a continuation of our last presentation on differentiated instruction through distance learning. Today's presentation will focus on assessment and evaluation with the student with a learning difference in mind. We will demonstrate effective assessment practices through various engaging and interactive online tools. When assessing students with learning difficulties, one must use multiple means and provide a variety of ways in which to demonstrate understanding of content in order to level the playing field. This includes triangulation of assessment and interaction with learning material. So now I'm just going to return to my home screen, and I would call on my next student who would like to see assessment and evaluation. Students with learning differences have average to above average cognitive abilities, but they often struggle to show what they know unless given varied output opportunities to demonstrate their learning. Asking students with learning disabilities to demonstrate knowledge through traditional written output will not reflect their level of understanding and ability. Be flexible and deliberate when planning assessment, and only assess what is necessary. Today, we will highlight Google Slides, Jamboard, Mentimeter, and Screencastify. As you can see on the table in front of you, these tools will enable you to gather evidence of student learning in multiple ways. Using an assessment planning template, such as this one, enables educators to plan activities and triangulation of assessment, whereby struggling learners can show what they know via conversations, observations, and products. This and all other resources will be shared with you later this week. Next, we'll go over to assessment tools. Remote learning and hybrid learning models bring on new challenges in the classroom. Which has been the most challenging mode of assessment this year? Or which do you typically find the most challenging? I'm going to share a Mentimeter poll with you. Mentimeter facilitates interaction and real-time feedback with your audience. Please take a moment to go to the following website, www.mentimeter.com. Once you arrive, enter this code. Remember, which mode of assessment do you find the most challenging during this time? Or which mode of assessment do you always find challenging? I'll give you a moment to do that. Great. Thank you so much for that. So you've had the opportunity to see what the student would see. Now I want to show you what I would see on my end. So I'm going to go to mentimeter.com and I'll log in to show you. The neat thing is that it's synchronous with Google, so I can just log in directly with my Google account. And I've previously logged in, so I've saved my password. And so here is the presentation or the survey that we just completed together. So the neat thing about Mentimeter is you can see now that it's compiled all of the responses and it's broken them down by percentages. So a really great visual to show your students as well. And Mentimeter can do a variety of response output modes. So you can use a pie chart like this one. You can break it down by percentages. You could use a graph. There are even word clouds that you can do in Mentimeter. Really great tool for engaging students, but showing them the visual of the response. So we've done a little bit of research and we wanted to share with you some responses that we've collected from our colleagues in education and how they are reaching students and assessing them via conversation, observation, and product. So for observations, we're finding in this online environment that we're having to draw on a lot of tech tools. A lot of teachers are reporting that they're using interactive whiteboards like Jamboard, which we'll take a look at later on today. Also Kami, which is a really great Chrome extension and text annotation tool. Even Google Draw can become an interactive Jamboard. I know sometimes we're limited by the products that our boards are allowing us to use. So most of us are sticking to the G Suite. And if for some reason you don't have access to Jamboard, it used to not be part of the G Suite package, but I believe it is now. You can also use Google Draw and share it with students and still use it to collaborate. Some teachers have reported that they're even marking observations from parents. For recording conversations with students, try using your actual Google Classroom stream. You can get conversations going right on the Google Classroom between you and the student or from student to student. And also you can entertain conversations through the comments section when you're marking assignments and providing feedback on those assessments. Conversations back and forth through comments provide a documented piece that you can use in reporting. Some teachers are also using audio recordings. This is going to be especially important for students with learning difficulties because they may be low readers. So having them create a quick audio clip and sharing it with you and sharing audio clips back and forth are a great way of having conversations as well, rather than relying on the use of text. So if you're not familiar with digital tools, that's okay. Start with one and build from there. You can still interact with your audience on video conference through the chat function. Please take a moment now in the chat room to let us know what is your favorite digital tool for assessment. So if you click on the bottom of your screen, the chat should pop up or a Q&A room. Take a moment and just type in, what is your favorite tool, digital tool for assessment? Okay, we'll just give you about 30 more seconds to type your answers in. You can enter as many answers as you like. This is a really simple way to engage with your students and your audience. Okay, great. Let's take a look at the chat room and see if we have any responses. So we have Faye who said, still using paper and pencil or writing anecdotal notes on a Google Doc. So would like to try something more. That's great. You've definitely come to the right place. We're going to show you lots of neat tools today. Are there any other comments in the chat room, Shannon?
Yes, there are. We have people using Google Forms, Screencastify, and Google Meets. So 3 comments. Thank you, everyone.
Okay, great. Now we're going to talk a little bit about Google Forms today. Oh, sorry about that, guys. Let me get rid of that. We're going to talk a little bit about Google Forms today, actually, as well as Screencastify. Okay, so I'm going to head back to my home screen. And now we're going to talk a bit about feedback. Ongoing and continuous feedback is essential for all students throughout the instruction and assessment process. Make sure to provide regular check-ins even during asynchronous time. Students with learning disabilities and ADHD are easily sidetracked during independent time. You can teach your students how to manage their time using online timers and apps such as FocusMe. FocusMe is a Chrome extension modeled after the Pomodoro method of time management. I'm going to take a second now and demonstrate to you. I've pre-installed the FocusMe Chrome extension. You can see it right up here on the top right of my screen. It's a little green square with a clock in the center of it. So once it's installed, really neat tool, and I actually use it all the time for my own purposes and encourage my students to do so as well. So we just click on it once it's installed to enable it. And then there are a couple of things here. So we can choose how long our time is going to be, our focus time. If you've ever used the Pomodoro method in the past, a typical or a usual chunk of time recommended is about 25 minutes. It will depend on your student and their age and how long they're able to focus for. But you can customize this. You can make it as little as, say, 10 minutes at a time. So once you set your focus time, you can then also set your break time. Okay? So I've set my focus time. So I'll set my break time for 5 minutes. If I'm working up to it slowly, I can ask a student to focus and concentrate on their work for 10 minutes without getting distracted. After 10 minutes, another countdown will start and they'll be allowed a 5-minute break time. This is the really neat part of FocusMe. I'm just going to click on this little arrow over here to the right. So here I can actually add websites in here, and I can block myself or restrict myself from accessing websites. So let's say I have a problem going on Facebook too much. I go on Facebook all the time. So I'm going to go in and I'm going to type facebook.com, and I'm just going to make sure that my web blocker is on. And then when I'm ready, I'm going to click the start button. So you can see that my countdown starts, and after the 10 minutes is up, I'll be allowed break time. But let's say I want to kind of cheat a little bit. My teacher's not paying attention. They can't tell I'm online anyway. I'm going to try and go on Facebook. So here we go. Let's see what happens. And it's blocked. So I can't go on Facebook right now. We're just going to stop that. So FocusMe is an excellent tool for timing and web blocking, but it also gives you the opportunity to teach your students about self-regulation and hold them accountable for the choices that they're making as well. To encourage understanding of success criteria, ask students to help you set expectations. This requires the student to perform a think aloud, whereby the student is repeating instructions back to you, but also taking that information and applying it in an authentic way. This provides a rich learning experience and encourages collaboration and design thinking principles. Employers are looking for those transferable skills, and this is a great way to encourage the development of 21st century competencies. So I'm just going to click on this Jamboard for a moment, and we'll talk in detail about Jamboard a little bit later on. But here, what I've done is I've created a Jamboard with my students, and it was in preparation for a math assignment. Students were learning how to calculate the volume of a rectangular prism, and toward the end of the week, they were preparing for an assessment. And just one of the criteria was, I just wanted to make sure that they could actually use the formula, find the values, plug it into the formula, use the formula correctly. So together on Jamboard, we started to brainstorm our success criteria. So they were able to verbalize, and they fully understood what they needed to do by the end of the week to get a level 4 on that assessment. And then I took the criteria that we built together and turned it into a rubric. So now we're going to get to the good part, and I'm going to try to demonstrate as many tools as I can. Let's go take a look at my virtual classroom. Welcome to my virtual classroom. This was created on Google Slides. Struggling and distracted learners will appreciate this because it is more visual than a typical Google Classroom setup. Important materials and concepts can all be front-loaded for students who need visual cueing and support. I've even added some fun items to my desk. Can you see them? Perhaps we'll play Where's Waldo every day, and I'll move my Dobby figurine around the room to have some fun with them. Maybe we'll play Elf on the Shelf closer to the holidays. So I'm going to show you how it works. This template will come along with the slide deck in the recording, so feel free to use it, and you can customize it and change it and make your own copies and share with your colleagues. So the idea of this virtual classroom was I wanted to try to recreate the classroom experience for my students that are all online at the moment. And typically in a classroom, because I teach students with LDs and ADHD, we have a lot of visuals posted around the classroom, a lot of reminders, a lot of graphic organizers, and things that they can refer to constantly so they don't have to memorize everything. So to create it and make it look like a Google Classroom, I added some of these aesthetics like the floor and my Bitmoji and the cool little things that we're going to move around. But by adding shapes and text boxes, I'm trying to make it look like those are the chart papers that would be posted to the wall and graphic organizers that students can refer to. We can even create a little whiteboard with the date and set the goals for today, just like you would in your normal classroom environment. So at the start of our day, we begin with O Canada and a very brief meditation. The meditation helps our students to get focused and ready for learning. The neat thing too about embedding videos, YouTube videos into Google Slides, and the reason I do it this way is because by embedding the videos into Google Slides, you can eliminate those pesky ads that normally pop up when you go onto YouTube, and you can even customize how much of the video you want to show. So if the video is too long, you can kind of clip it at the end. If there's a bunch of stuff in the beginning that you don't really want to see, you can cut that part out as well. So let's take a quick look at, we'll start with Google Forms. So Google Forms, some of you mentioned that you're using Google Forms. Google Forms is great, and they're not just for surveys, and that's a very common use for them. But in Google Forms, you can actually create quizzes. And a lot of us know that, but what some of us don't know is that you can embed feedback right into the quiz. Because you're not there with your student, if you're teaching online or if you're busy doing something else, you can give them an opportunity to kind of reassess their answer and sort of try to make another guess, whether it's a formative or a summative quiz. You can create choose your own adventure stories, which I'll show you in a moment, and even digital literacy centers. So I'll take a quick look at a Google quiz. I've tried to create one for us ahead of time. So all I do to create a quiz is I would create a standard Google form. But once you've created that Google form, you want to go up to the settings and click on quizzes and make sure that you turn it into a quiz. And that's how you're going to be able to add that important feedback for students. So this is a quiz that I may have created. Perhaps my students are reading the book A Wrinkle in Time, and we're going to have a chapter quiz. So I've started by creating a question, and I can add visuals. I can create any type of question. It could be short answer, it could be paragraph. I like to make my quizzes multiple choice, and I'll show you why in a second. But I can add YouTube videos for my lower readers. I can add visual images as well for my lower readers to help them understand what's being asked of them. So the question that I've preloaded here is, who is Charles Wallace? Is it A, Meg's brother, B, Meg's father, or C, Meg's principal? And when you create a form in Google Quizzes, you'll automatically get this option down here on the bottom left of your section. And when you click on that, you can start to assign points to your quiz questions, but also you can assign feedback. So I've preset it so that if the student answers Meg's brother, which is correct, the feedback that they're going to get is amazing, and they'll get the point. But if they enter Meg's father or Meg's principal, the feedback that they're going to get is nice guess, but try again and check your notes. I could even insert a video at this point if I had a video clip or an excerpt from the book to kind of give them a clue before they go on to the next question. Another really great use of Google Forms is choose your own adventure stories. So I've preset a Google form for us today as well, and I'll share all of these with you later on in the week. So we're reading A Wrinkle in Time, and let's say we're getting to the point in the year we want to work on a little bit more reading comprehension. We've built up some of those reading comprehension skills, but now I really want to work on making inferences and predictions with my students. And students with learning difficulties often have trouble with that piece, making inferences. So this is a fun way to complete a reading comprehension activity and engage that type of learner. So what we've got here is, based on the clues in the book and what you've read, what can you infer? Create your own adventure story and write the next chapter. So I've created the Google form just as I would before. Also, you want to go up to the settings and you want to set it up as a quiz. Okay, not a typical Google form, you want to set it up as a quiz. I'm going to enter my title and my instructions up here. And to get it started, what I've chosen is an interesting image that I think might represent what a tesseract is. And I've put an excerpt from the book right here on that image. And this is the point in the book where the children and the W's, the Mrs. W's, all go through the tesseract and they don't know where they're going to end up. So the task is that the students are to, based on what they've read about the book, what they've learned, what they've understood, find the clues in the book and infer what's going to happen next. And they're going to create their own adventure. So here are the three options that I've preloaded. And your students hopefully will write more than this, but I just wanted to put in a quick example. So option number 1 would be, they wake up from a crazy dream. Option number 2 would be, they land in the middle of the ocean. Option number 3 would be, the children find themselves in a strange place, etc. So what you're going to do at this point is you're going to click right here on add a section. When you do that, it's going to create a section that looks like this, right down here, this one here. And then you're going to go back here, make sure that you select required, and you're going to click on the 3 dots and select go to section based on answer. So what I can do here is I can pre-select. If I choose this, they wake up in a crazy dream, they go to this section, and what happens next? If I choose the middle option, I can create another section, and what happens next? So you can create a choose your own adventure type story for your students, but if you want to work on some creative writing and make, reading comprehension a little bit more engaging for your LD learners, you can get them to create their own adventure stories as well. Just a quick reminder, if you have any questions, please go ahead and just add them in the chat room. Shannon is monitoring the chat room, and we'll pause for questions at the end of the presentation. Let's take a look at Jamboard next. Jamboard is a cloud-based interactive whiteboard that facilitates real-time collaboration. Participants can work remotely from various locations on their Jamboards. It's a really great tool for encouraging student collaboration, design thinking, and brainstorming, but it's also a great platform to create interactive teaching materials. Jamboard is not just for brainstorming and for sticky notes. Let's take a look at some examples. I just want to preface this by saying these 2 samples I did not create myself. I attend a lot of EdTech Team Canada workshops and a lot of EdTech PD, and these actually came from their summer summit. I would highly recommend them. EdTech Team Canada, you can look them up on Twitter or online. Their workshops are super reasonably priced, and they're always great, full of lots of good resources. So here's a Jamboard template that EdTech Team Canada shared for music, art, and phys ed teachers. Let's take a really quick look at it. Okay. So in this first template, we see the teacher is asking us to maybe write music onto a score and play along with the answer. So the teacher has created music notes as manipulatives that the students could pick up and move around and move on to the sheet music. In this Jamboard, teacher has created an art activity. Imagine that you're going on your own adventure. Draw your own adventure. And so Jamboard has all of these neat tools along the side. And it's even better than it used to be because it didn't have all of these tools before. I'll take a moment to go over it now. So the pen tool allows you to choose the style of pen and the color that you would like to write with or draw with. There's an eraser tool. So if I don't like what I just did, I click on my eraser and I can just get rid of that. The selection tool allows us to grab objects like sticky notes and move them around. The sticky note tool, which is one of the most common tools that we use on Jamboard, you can choose the color of sticky note, write your message on it. And this is really good for brainstorming collaboratively, like we did earlier when we were building success criteria. You can click and drag the sticky notes and move them around. You can edit them and duplicate them. You can delete them. You can order them. So if you're brainstorming with your kids and there's like 50 sticky notes on your Jamboard, you can go in and you can arrange them like you would a collage so that you can see everything. You can even change the orientation to add some visual interest. So, you can add images. This is how we're creating a lot of the backgrounds. So you can either do a Google image search and find an image that you would like to insert. You can upload something from your Google Drive, or you can upload something from your computer. This one is new. You can now insert shapes. So circles, squares, you name it, arrows. You can create graphic organizers, flow charts, brainstorm the writing process on Jamboard, you name it. And also new to Jamboard is adding text boxes. Before it was only sticky notes that you could add text to, but now you can add text boxes and you can customize the font a little bit too. You can change the size, the color, and the orientation of it just a little bit. And for presentation purposes, if you want your student to present their sticky note later on, or their Jamboard later on, they can click on the laser pointer, and as they're presenting, they're pointing through their presentation. Here's another one. You can add GIFs to Jamboard. You can't add videos though. You could add a video link, like you could do a hyperlink and the student would click on it, but it would take them to YouTube or another site wherever the video is being run from. But you can add animated images and GIFs. So imagine a gym teacher wanting their students to describe the technique that we're seeing in this GIF. Okay, and here are some language activities as well. I'm going to skip past those and allow you to look at those on your own time. We just have a couple more items to go over before the end of our presentation. So Screencastify is a Chrome browser extension that records your screen, face, voice, and more. To use Screencastify, find its icon in the Chrome toolbar and choose among the recording options. Record in a single tab in your web browser, capture all screen activity, or use your webcam to record or insert a video of yourself. And some of you mentioned that you are using Screencastify right now. This is a great assessment tool, whether it be formative or summative assessment for students that have LDs and ADHD, especially if they're low readers and they struggle with written output. Because you can ask a student to demonstrate their learning either by creating a video or an audio recording rather than having them write it all out. So in this example, this was a math activity. Going back to the one we chatted about earlier on the Jamboard, students had to calculate the volume of a rectangular prism and then create a video on Screencastify to explain their answer.
My planter box. I plan to build a large planter box for my balcony. The length will be 3 feet. The width will be 1.5 feet. And the height will be 1 foot. Volume equals 3 times 1.5 times 1. The volume equals 4.5 cubic feet. Therefore, I will need 4.5 cubic feet of soil for my planter box.
So really easy to use, and I use this one a lot as well to create how-to videos for my students. So students with LDs and ADHD might become distracted while you're doing live synchronous lessons. And if you're teaching an important math concept or an important language concept and they're thinking about what they're going to do after school when they finally get to call their friends, they've likely missed the lesson. So pre-recording your lessons, even if you're just screencasting your slideshows, you don't have to record yourself, you can just screencast your screen, allows the student to then go back and watch it over and over again. They can watch it as many times as they need to until they solidify that concept and they understand what's required of them. Okay, the last tool that I want to show you is an interactive slide. So this was created on Google Slides. Google Slides is really popular right now, and it's being used to create choice boards and interactive slides. Some boards may have the Pear Deck add-on as well, which makes it a little bit easier. But in this sample, what we've done is we've just downloaded an image of a chalkboard and then uploaded it as a background on our Google slide. And then just working through a little bit of pre-algebra with our younger kids, teaching them about collecting like terms. So we're teaching them that A are apples and O are oranges, and giving them a few equations to try after we've taught the lesson. Students can actually click and drag the items to move them around and demonstrate the equation. So I'll exit presentation mode so that you can see that. When I'm out of presentation mode, I can click and drag and I can move my apples around. So 2A plus A, 3O, and then I'm going to put my A and my O back. And I've demonstrated visually that I understand how to collect like terms. This is also really beneficial formative activity for students with learning difficulties. There's a lot of language in math, and sometimes they're working so hard to decode and understand what you're asking them to do that maybe they've kind of forgotten along the way and they can't hold all of those steps. So allowing them to demonstrate their math visually is allowing them to show you what they know, but just in a different way. Thank you so much for taking the time to spend with us today. We know that everyone is really busy right now. We have recorded this session, so if you know someone who signed up and they weren't able to join us or they had to leave early today, we will send out a copy of the slide deck, all of the resources, as well as a recording of today's webinar for you. Just wanted to leave you with my email address, wendy.farkas@ontario.ca. Please feel free to email me anytime should you have any questions, and also consider signing up for more webinars. So you can sign up directly on our website. Shannon, who's on with me today, has a really great webinar coming up about understanding the LD and ADH learner, but through the executive functioning lens. So supporting students that have executive function deficits. Are there any questions in the chat room?
No, there's a thank you. There was a question in the Q&A about whether or not you were considered using the land acknowledgement in your Google Classroom.
I did.
Canada and that morning routine.
I did. I didn't play it for you, but what I did, I'll go back to it. So this video that I've embedded actually was created by the Peel District School Board.
We would like to acknowledge we are here today on the traditional territories.
And it has the land acknowledgement embedded in it.
Thank you, Wendy. That's all. There's just some more thank yous and no other questions in the Q&A room or the chat room.
Okay, great. One last thing that I want to leave you with is we've created a swag bag for you today. If you'd like to set up a choice board or a virtual classroom and you don't know how to do that, we've got lots of templates for you to get started with. By clicking on any of the thumbnails on the swag bag will take you directly to resources that you might be interested in. So for example, here's the template from today's presentation. There's a tic-tac-toe board, a game board, all kinds of different options, whatever you think your students would be interested in, whatever you think would appeal to them the most. Some additional instructional tools that you might be interested in learning about that we didn't get a chance to go over today, and some other materials including professional reading and an additional document on supporting students with learning disabilities while they're engaging in remote or distance learning. So I will send that off to you as well later on this week. Okay. If there aren't any other questions, then we'll conclude our presentation for today. Thank you so much for joining us today. We really appreciate it. Take care.